she heard her mother whisper a man's name, the same name she had been whispering in secret. Eliza stopped breathing. The name echoed down the hallway. Soft, dangerous, wrong. Savannah, 1842. A house where silence carried knives and secrets lived longer than the people who kept them. Eliza, young, rebellious, restless in a life built on rules she never agreed to. Margaret, her mother, graceful in daylight, haunted in darkness, hiding the kind of past that stains every room you walk through. And the name they whispered, Jonah. A man forced into chains but never into obedience. A man who walked quietly yet made every wall tremble. Eliza noticed him first, or at least she thought she did. The way he moved, the way he avoided her eyes, the way those same eyes burned when he finally looked up. One evening, behind the carriage house, their hands brushed, their breaths tangled, and something forbidden sparked like a match in a dry forest. But sparks have a way of becoming fires, especially when the past hasn't died, just stayed quiet. Because Margaret, the mother, knew that same spark, that same fire, that same man. She knew it too well, too painfully, too intimately. Eliza didn't know, not yet, that she was stepping into her mother's old shadow, touching her mother's old wounds, wanting the same man her mother once claimed in secret. Two women, one house, one man they were never meant to love, and a truth waiting to explode. Before long, one of them would vanish, and the other would be accused of knowing why. But everything began with that whisper in the dark. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you want next. The secret didn't stay a whisper. It became a storm, and the first lightning struck the very next morning. The sun rose slow, heavy, as if it already knew what the day was carrying. Eliza avoided her mother at breakfast, head down, heart racing, trying to pretend nothing had happened, trying to pretend she hadn't heard that forbidden name slip from Margaret's lips like a ghost returning home. But Margaret watched her, too closely, too quietly, as if she were studying a reflection she didn't trust anymore. The father spoke about cotton prices, the weather, the governor's visit, but neither woman heard a word. Their minds were on Jonah. Jonah, meanwhile, was already in the fields, hands blistered, back bent, but mind sharp, sharper than anyone realized. He felt the shift in the air, the tension, the invisible fight between two women, a fight he never asked for, but could no longer escape. Eliza slipped away after breakfast, her pulse loud, her thoughts louder, heading straight to the old barn, the place where their stolen moments lived. Jonah was there, stacking crates, sweat on his skin, eyes catching the morning light, turning it into something dangerous. "Eliza, you shouldn't be here." His voice was low, careful, but trembling just a little, and she heard it. "I heard her," Eliza whispered. "Last night, she said your name." Jonah froze. The crate slipped from his hands, hit the ground with a crack that echoed like a warning shot. He knew this day would come. He just prayed it never would. "Eliza, listen to me," he said, stepping closer. "You don't know what you're walking into." But she stepped even closer, close enough to touch, close enough to feel the fear in his breath. "What is she hiding from me?" Jonah didn't answer, couldn't, because the truth wasn't just dangerous, it was deadly. Before he could speak, the barn door creaked open. Margaret stood there, still, silent, eyes burning with a mix of anger, fear, and something darker. Her gaze moved from Jonah to Eliza, then back to Jonah, slow, deadly, knowing. And in that moment, Eliza understood one thing. Her mother's past wasn't gone. It was standing in the doorway, alive, breathing, and ready to fight. The doorway became a battlefield, and none of them walked out the same. Margaret's shadow stretched across the barn floor, long, cold, sharp as a blade being unsheathed. Eliza stepped back, just a little, but Jonah didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't bow. Not this time. "Leave us," Margaret said, her voice soft but trembling in a way that revealed everything she tried to hide. Eliza didn't move. She wasn't a child anymore, and this secret was hers now, whether her mother liked it or not. "No," Eliza whispered. "I want the truth." Margaret's jaw tightened. Her eyes flickered, and for the first time, Jonah saw fear in her expression. Real fear. She closed the barn door behind her, as if sealing all three of them inside, trapping the truth with them. "Eliza," Margaret said, "whatever you think you know, you're wrong." But Eliza shook her head, her voice sharper now, stronger. "You said his name last night. Why?" Silence. The kind that crushes the air and slows the heartbeat. Margaret finally turned toward Jonah, not as a mistress, not as a woman in power, but as someone facing a ghost of her own making. "Tell her," she whispered. "You owe her that." Jonah closed his eyes just for a second, like a man preparing to walk into fire. When he opened them, they held 20 years of pain. "Eliza, your mother and I." He struggled, swallowed, forced the words out. "We had something once, long before you were born." The blood drained from Eliza's face, but anger filled the space it left behind. "So you loved him?" she asked Margaret. Margaret didn't answer with words, just with the way her eyes softened, then hardened again. "It wasn't love," she said. "It was survival." Jonah flinched because he remembered every moment, every promise, every heartbreak buried under a system built to crush people like him. Eliza stepped forward, her voice breaking. "So you expect me to believe you were forced, and yet you still whispered his name?" Margaret looked at her daughter, really looked, and something inside her cracked. "You think you're the first to fall for him?" Her voice rose, raw, unfiltered, "as if desire can save you in this house?" Jonah stepped between them, hands raised, trying to stop a war already burning. "Eliza," he said softly, "you need to understand. This path you're on, it doesn't end well." But before she could answer, a loud knock echoed from outside the barn. Someone was coming. Someone who had heard rumors. Someone who would destroy everything if they found the three of them together. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. The knock on the barn door wasn't a warning. It was the beginning of the hunt. The three of them froze, not a breath, not a whisper, only the echo of that knock rolling through the barn like thunder. Margaret's eyes widened first. She knew that sound, that rhythm, that authority. It wasn't a servant, it wasn't a neighbor, it was someone who never knocked softly. Mr. Hale, the overseer, a man who enjoyed power too much, too often, and especially over Jonah. "Eliza!" Margaret hissed. "Get behind the crates, now!" But Eliza didn't move. She couldn't, her feet rooted to the dirt, her pulse pounding like the knock had landed on her chest. Jonah stepped forward, calm, controlled, masking the fear he carried like a second skin. "Let me handle this," he whispered. Another knock, harder this time. "Jonah!" Mr. Hale's voice cracked through the wood, sharp, impatient, suspicious. "You in there? I heard talking." Margaret rushed to the door, smoothing her dress, forcing calm into her voice. "Just me," she called out, "checking on supplies." A slow pause. Too slow. Then the door creaked open and Mr. Hale's eyes slid inside, cold, calculating, searching. Jonah kept his head down, hands at his sides, body still. He knew men like Hale. One wrong breath could get you killed. "Ma'am," Hale said with a stiff nod, "didn't know you were here." Margaret smiled, a practiced smile, hiding the tremor in her chest. "I didn't realize I needed to report my movements." Hale chuckled, but his eyes were already sweeping the barn, left, right, up, down, lingering too long on every shadow. Then he saw it. A small thing, a dangerous thing. Eliza's shoe, barely peeking from behind a crate. Hale's smile changed, slow, predatory. "Thought you said you was alone." Margaret's breath hitched. Jonah's fists tightened. Eliza held her breath until it burned. Hale stepped deeper into the barn, boots crushing hay, his gaze locked on the crates. "Someone hiding?" he asked, tone sharp enough to cut skin. Jonah moved, a single step forward, placing himself between Hale and the crates. "No one's hiding," he said, voice steady, eyes unbroken. Hale's grin widened. He loved defiance, loved punishing it even more. "Well," Hale murmured, "let's see about that." He reached for the crate, inches away, and in that moment everything hung by a thread. If Hale pulled that crate, if he saw Eliza, if he realized the truth, someone would die. Maybe two, maybe all three, and the thread was already snapping. One more inch, and the whole secret would explode in Hale's hands. Hale's fingers brushed the crate, slow, teasing, like a man savoring the moment before the kill. Eliza's lungs burned, her heartbeat loud enough to give her away. Her body pressed so tight against the wood she could feel it shaking. Margaret took a step forward, her voice soft but urgent. "Hale, stop. There's no need for this." But he didn't stop. He enjoyed the power, the suspicion, the fear. "Funny," Hale said, "'cause I swear I heard someone else in here." He shoved the crate hard. It slid an inch, just one, but enough to expose the edge of Eliza's dress. Margaret gasped. Jonah tensed. Hale's smile sharpened. "Well now," he murmured, "what do we have here?" Before he could lean in, before he could expose her, Jonah stepped in front of the crate, blocking Hale's view completely. "Sir," Jonah said, voice steady, strong, dangerous. "I was talking to myself. Nobody else is here." Hale's eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to Jonah pushing back, not like this. "You calling me a liar?" Hale asked. Jonah didn't blink. "I'm saying you heard wrong." A moment of silence, thick, hot, ready to ignite. Then Hale smirked, a cruel smirk, the kind that meant trouble was coming. "You know," Hale said, "I've been looking for a reason to put you in line again." Margaret stiffened. "Enough, Hale, leave him." But Hale ignored her, his voice dripping with threat. "After work tonight, Jonah, you come see me. We gonna discuss your attitude." Jonah didn't move, didn't answer, didn't show the fear curling in his stomach. Hale leaned in close, whispering in Jonah's ear, "Or I'll drag you there myself." Then, just as quickly, he turned, walked to the door, and stepped out into the sunlight. The door closed behind him, echoing like a death sentence. Eliza collapsed to her knees, shaking, breathing hard. Margaret rushed to her, pulling her from behind the crates, holding her tight as if she'd nearly lost her. Jonah stood there, silent, eyes burning with a mix of anger, relief, and something far darker. "He knows," Jonah whispered. "Maybe not everything, but he knows something." Margaret looked at him, her face pale, her hands trembling. "If he finds out the truth, he'll destroy you. He'll destroy all of us." Jonah nodded once, a man accepting a fate he didn't choose. And outside, Hale's footsteps faded down the path, slow, confident, certain he had found his next victim. But Hale had no idea. His hunt had awakened something far more dangerous than defiance. It awakened a war. Night came, and with it, the punishment Hale had been craving. The sun died slow behind the fields, leaving the sky bruised, purple, heavy, like the world itself knew what was coming. Jonah didn't eat dinner, didn't speak, didn't look anyone in the eyes. He just worked, harder than he should, trying to burn the fear out of his body before Hale came calling. Eliza watched from the window, hands trembling, heart breaking, knowing Jonah was walking straight into danger because of her. Margaret stood beside her, silent, jaw clenched, eyes dark with memories of another night, decades ago, when she had been the one Hale cornered. She remembered the bruise. She remembered the screaming. She remembered the helplessness. She remembered Jonah, bleeding, protecting her, taking the punishment that wasn't meant for him. And now, history was trying to repeat itself. As the sky turned black, a lantern flickered down the path, swinging, swaying, drawing closer. Hale. Jonah stepped away from the other workers, his face calm, his body ready, not to win, but to endure. Hale approached with that same cruel grin, the same gleam in his eyes that meant pain was coming. "Well now," Hale said, "you kept me waiting." Jonah didn't respond. Silence was safer. Hale circled him, slow like a wolf measuring the weakness of its prey. "You think you can talk back to me, hide things from me, lie to me?" Jonah's jaw tightened, but he stayed still. Hale shoved him hard. Jonah stumbled, caught himself, didn't fall. Hale shoved again, harder. This time Jonah hit the dirt. Eliza gasped from the window, her hand flying to her mouth, tears stinging her eyes. Margaret grabbed her arm. "Don't go out there." "But he's—" "Don't," Margaret repeated, voice shaking because she knew if Eliza stepped outside, Hale would know everything, every secret, every forbidden truth. Outside, Hale grabbed Jonah by the collar, dragged him to his feet, his face inches away. "You think I don't know?" Hale growled. "There's something going on. Someone's hiding something, and I'm gonna find out." Then, without warning, Hale struck him. A brutal hit, knuckles cracking, bone meeting bone, Jonah collapsing again. Eliza screamed, but the glass muffled her voice. Margaret held her tighter, conflicted, terrified, caught between the past she'd lived and the daughter she was trying to protect. Hale raised his hand again, ready for another blow, but this time Jonah caught it. His fingers wrapped around Hale's wrist, his eyes burning, not with fear, but with something Hale never expected, defiance. "You hit me again," Jonah said quietly, "and you'll regret it." Hale froze, stunned, offended, enraged. No one had ever spoken to him like that, especially not a man in chains. "This ain't over," Hale spat, jerking his arm free. "Tomorrow, I finish this." He stormed away, lantern swinging violently, his shadow long and furious. Jonah stood alone in the dark, bleeding, breathing hard, knowing Hale's threats were real. Inside the house, Eliza sobbed, Margaret trembled, and both women realized they weren't fighting over Jonah anymore. They were fighting for his life. Dawn revealed the cost of yesterday and the first casualty of this secret war. The morning sun burned weakly through the fog, soft light spilling over the fields, hiding nothing, revealing everything. Jonah limped toward the house, bruised, exhausted, every muscle aching, but his eyes still alive with fire. Eliza ran to him, her hands trembling, touching his wounds, feeling his pain, her heart breaking in rhythm with every breath he took. "You should have rested," she whispered. "Let me handle him next time." Jonah shook his head, soft smile. "Next time won't come unless we're careful." Margaret watched them, her face pale, hands clutching the kitchen table. She couldn't look away, not at Jonah, not at Eliza, not at the storm that was coming. Breakfast was silent, the air thick with tension, every sound amplified, every glance weighted with suspicion. Hale didn't appear yet, but his presence lingered like a dark shadow stretching across the yard, into the house, into every corner of their lives. Eliza couldn't stop thinking about the secret, about the man she loved, about the woman who gave him to her first, about the danger they were all in now. "I can't keep hiding," Eliza finally said, her voice shaking but firm. "I need to know everything, now." Margaret froze, her hands dropped to her sides, her eyes wide, pain etched into every line of her face. "You're not ready," Margaret whispered. "You'll regret it if you hear it." Jonah stepped closer, placing himself between mother and daughter. "Margaret, she is ready," he said. "Secrets like this, they never stay buried, not forever." Margaret's gaze flicked between them, fear, guilt, regret, all wrestling inside her. Finally she sighed, heavy, broken, and motioned for them to follow her. They moved to the back room, the one no one ever entered, where old letters lay, where old photographs sat, where memories of forbidden nights slept quietly until now. Margaret opened a trunk, hands shaking, revealing a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. "These," she said softly, "these letters, they tell everything." Eliza leaned forward, heart pounding, fingers brushing the edges, afraid, excited, terrified to see the truth. Jonah placed a hand over hers, gentle, steady, and whispered, "No matter what you see, you survive. We survive. Together." Margaret opened the first letter, ink faded, words from a time long gone, words that would change everything they thought they knew. And in that moment, the truth finally began to surface, a truth that would ignite rage, a truth that would awaken secrets better left buried, a truth that would decide who lived and who disappeared. The letters spoke the truth, and the past reached out to claim the present. Margaret unfolded the first letter, paper brittle, edges frayed, ink faded like a memory struggling to survive. Her hands shook. Eliza leaned closer. Jonah watched silently, every heartbeat echoing in the small room. The letter was from Margaret herself, written 20 years ago, hidden from everyone. A confession, a warning, a secret she had buried deep. Jonah was hers first. Eliza's eyes widened, her breath caught. The words burned into her mind, her world shattering with each line. "He was mine," Margaret whispered, voice low, trembling. "But I was young and foolish, and the world, it took him from me." Jonah's face hardened, not with anger, not with shame, but with memory of a man caught between two lives, between love and survival, between the woman who raised Eliza and the woman who raised his heart. Eliza couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't understand how the mother she trusted could have loved the same man she loved now. Margaret continued, hands clutching the letters like a lifeline. "I thought it was over. I thought I buried it. I thought no one would ever know. But fate is cruel." Jonah clenched his fists, the old pain returning, the betrayal, the impossible choice between duty, love, and desire. Eliza finally whispered, "You loved him too?" Margaret didn't answer right away, her eyes wet, her lips tight, a lifetime of guilt pressing down on her chest. "Yes," she finally admitted, "long before you were born, and I never thought it would come back like this." Eliza's mind reeled, the house spinning, the past bleeding into the present, every stolen glance, every secret touch, every whisper in the dark. All of it made sense now. Jonah stepped closer, his voice low, calm, dangerous. "This isn't about love anymore. It's about survival. And if anyone finds out, Hale, the overseers, no one will survive." Eliza nodded slowly, her fear mixing with determination, her anger rising, her love for Jonah undimmed, but now complicated, twisted, tangled in a history she never expected to inherit. Margaret placed a trembling hand on Eliza's shoulder. "Now you know," she said softly, "but knowing is only the first step. The next step could get one of us killed." Outside the house, the wind carried Hale's laughter, a sound that promised danger, a sound that said the hunt had only begun. And inside, 3 hearts beat faster than ever before, bound by a secret, by love, by a past they could no longer escape. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you want next. Hale was closer than they knew, and tonight the hunt would reach its peak. Night fell heavy over the house, shadows crawling across walls, branches scratching at windows like skeletal fingers, the air thick with dread. Jonah moved quietly, every step measured, every breath controlled. He checked the doors, the windows, the paths leading into the property. Eliza followed him, hands trembling, heart hammering, every nerve screaming danger, yet drawn to him like a moth to flame. Margaret lingered behind, watching them, remembering the mistakes of her own youth, the night she had lost control, the night she had almost lost Jonah once before. A sudden sound, a branch snapping in the yard. Jonah froze, eyes narrowing. Eliza dropped silently behind him. Hale stepped into the moonlight, a silhouette of authority and cruelty. Boots crunching on the earth, lantern swaying in his hand, eyes scanning every corner. "You thought you could hide?" Hale called, voice loud, mocking, full of menace. Jonah stepped forward. "I'm not hiding," he said, calm, defiant, ready to face whatever came. Hale laughed, slow, cruel, a laugh that promised pain. "Not hiding, huh? We'll see about that." Eliza gripped Jonah's arm, fear rising, but also fury. This man had no right, no mercy, no respect for life. Margaret stepped out from the shadows. "I won't let you harm him," she said, her voice steady, strong, a mother's protective fury burning bright. Hale sneered. You think you can stop me? He swung the lantern, light flashing, casting long shadows across the yard. Jonah moved fast, blocking the swing, hands gripping Hale's wrist, strength against strength, determination against cruelty. A struggle erupted, shouts, strains, the lantern clattering to the ground, light scattering, shadows dancing like monsters on the walls. Eliza screamed, rushing forward, trying to help, but Margaret held her back. "Wait," she hissed. "Don't risk your life." Hale shoved Jonah. Jonah stumbled but didn't fall, eyes blazing, mind calculating, every option, every outcome. Then Hale lunged. Jonah caught him, spun him, and slammed him against the barn door. The door rattled, the wood groaned, and Hale realized, for the first time, he wasn't in control anymore. Breathless, sweat dripping, faces inches apart, the three of them stared at each other, understanding that tonight nothing would be the same. The war had begun, and someone was going to pay the price. The final night arrived, and the secret that haunted them all demanded a sacrifice. The moon hung low, blood red, casting the yard in a surreal, haunting light. Shadows stretched long, moving like predators waiting for the kill. Jonah stood at the edge of the yard, muscles tense, every sense alert. He knew Hale wouldn't stop until he uncovered the truth, until he punished what he didn't understand. Eliza stayed close, heart pounding, hands gripping his arm. Her fear mingled with determination. She wouldn't let history repeat itself. Margaret lingered behind, eyes wet with tears, hands shaking, the weight of decades of secrets pressing down like chains. Hale appeared, silent at first, then a low laugh, the kind that promised pain, the kind that made blood run cold. "You thought you could hide?" Hale spat. "Thought you could defy me?" Jonah stepped forward. "No," he said, his voice steady, controlled, eyes burning with fire. "You can't touch us, not anymore." Hale lunged, a brutal swing. Jonah caught him, twisted, and for the first time, Hale stumbled, the predator caught off guard. Eliza seized the moment, rushing forward, grabbing a heavy lantern, swinging it with everything she had, crashing it into Hale's back. Hale fell forward, grunting in shock and fury. Jonah grabbed his arm, twisting, flipping him onto the ground. Margaret finally stepped out, standing tall, no longer the woman hiding in shadows, her voice strong, unyielding. "I will not let you destroy us." Hale scrambled, eyes wild, but he was too late. Jonah pinned him, strength and rage combined, the years of oppression, abuse, and fear fueling every move. "You underestimate us," Jonah said, cold, final, deadly. Hale struggled, but it was over. The fight was done, the threat eliminated. The three of them stood there, breathing heavy, sweat mixing with blood, the moon witnessing their survival, the house holding its secrets, but no longer as chains, now as memories they would carry together. Eliza looked at Jonah, her voice trembling. "Is it over?" Jonah nodded, pulling her close. "Yes, it's over for now, but we have to stay vigilant." Margaret placed a hand on both of them, her eyes full of love and warning. "The past tried to destroy us, but together we survived. Never forget what this night cost us." The night was quiet again, the shadows retreating, but the house remembered, the secrets remained, and somewhere in the darkness a whisper of danger lingered. A new beginning was here, but one thing was certain: no secret, no desire, no forbidden love could ever be truly buried. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you want more dark, suspenseful stories like this.